Hi everybody, today's file backup and recovery tip of the day is going to focus on rule creation. So more specifically, how to create your own rule that will either back up a particular file or folder or location or not back it up for some particular reason. So again, out of the box, you get a standard rules engine which will determine what backs up and what doesn't back up on a computer, but it is always completely up to you to modify that configuration or create your own configuration. So to create your own backup or exclusion rules, you can go to backup configurations. And again, remember, out of the box, you're going to get what we call our standard configuration. So this is one that we have curated for you, and 99.9% of the time, it's going to be ready to roll. This is all you need to do. But every once in a while, there's unique situations where you need to modify this configuration. You can always either modify this one, clone it, create a brand new one, completely up to you. So I'm going to go in here and actually play with how to create a rule that will either back up a file or folder or exclude it from backup. So again, by default, we have 3 buckets of rules for our backup configuration. We have backup subject to excludes, and just to remind everybody what that is, all it means is that if a file matches a rule that is in this section, it will back up as long as it is not in a location that is explicitly excluded from backup. So for example, let's say I would create a backup rule subject to excludes, and this is actually one that exists as part of our standard configuration, to back up all .doc files, so Word documents. But if there is also a exclusion rule that says don't back up, let's say, a particular system folder that we don't care about, in that situation, since we created the Word document backup subject to excludes rule, it will back up any Word document as long as it is not in that systems folder location that we've specifically excluded. So it's a way of really skinnying back data to make sure that, hey, we know there's locations that just don't matter to people. So make sure we back up all of these different file extensions, but in those areas where it's just garbage, exclude those. And then the final bucket is backup always. This will trump everything. So it will back up that file or folder location or file type regardless of where it lives. So that's what these rules mean. So what I want to do today is actually create a backup subject to excludes rule and kind of show you the power of this solution. So the type of rule that I'm going to create is actually a really powerful aspect of StorageCraft's file backup and recovery suite, which is the ability to create a composite rule. So not only back up a particular type of folder or file, but do it subject to certain parameters. And in fact, I actually take that back. I'm not going to do a subject to excludes. I'm going to do an exclusions rule here. So what we're going to do is, let's say I want to back up all .mpgs as long as they're under a certain capacity, or and the flip side, let's say I want to exclude .mpgs if they're over a certain capacity. So let's actually create an exclusions rule instead of a backup rule. So I'm going to go in here, and you can see these are all of our standard rules. You see these master rule sets. But down here I have my SAH tech, that's my MSP here. And this is mine where I can create and add my own rules. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to create what we call a composite rule. Again, what I want to do is exclude large .mpgs. You know, we don't want to waste bandwidth. We don't want to waste storage by backing up somebody's 4 gigabyte high definition Zoolander video here. So we're going to exclude large .mpgs. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file extension rule. And again, this is going to be a composite rule. So file extension for .mpg. And then I'm going to now add a file attribute rule. So extension is .mpg, and I'm going to say file size greater than, let's say 50 megabytes. Oops, 50 megabytes, and hit apply. So I just created an exclusions rule that will not back up any .mpg over 50 megabytes in capacity. So small MPGs, maybe a recording of a webinar, things of smaller capacity, those .mpgs will still back up. But any of these large ones, that Zoolander video, that will not get backed up. So it's a really powerful rule. And remember, when it comes to rules, I made this as part of our standard configuration. So any computer, so you can see I just added this here, any computer using this SAH Tech standard configuration will automatically inherit that rule that I just created. So as a partner, as an MSP, you don't have to log into every single computer and make that change. They'll automatically download this change without having to interrupt the end user. So that's a really quick overview of how to create an exclusions rule, a composite exclusions rule. Play around with the rules engine, a really, really powerful aspect of StorageCraft's file backup and recovery solution.